Back to Bob. We were talking about the inflationary depression that's coming, that we're in, and also the ensuing deflation. Bob, can you tell us what you think the timing is going to be like and how it's going to feel to those of us that are working every day?
Well, first of all, timing is extraordinarily difficult. A year ago, May, I projected that there would be 14% inflation by the end of this year. Real inflation currently is about 10.6%, not the 3.2% your government tells you about. And in England, inflation's officially 4.4%, and in reality, it's 12 to 13%. And that's one of the reasons they're having the riots that they've had in England over the past couple of weeks. Jobs are scarce, and the cost of things are going up. And so we have a worldwide phenomena working here. We also have a slowdown worldwide in production in manufacturing. China came in with their figures yesterday. They were down. And they're calling inflation 6.6%, when in reality it's 15%. And production is down about 1% in India. And Germany, of all places, the production is down as well. Very, very surprising. In fact, it was like up 0.04%, which is not expected, and it's not good. So we have this ongoing difficulty within economies. At the same time, we have central banks, the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, and the European Central Bank printing money and credit like there's no tomorrow. And the causation in America of that inflation I spoke of, 10.6% and 14% by the end of the year, is a product of QE1 and Stimulus 1. Well, we just finished QE2 and Stimulus 2, and that damage will start showing up next year. And that should take us to 25%. And if we get QE3, and I guarantee you we will, because if they don't have it, they're going down the chute, that will take inflation to 50%. And that'll be caused in part, for the most part, by creating money and credit. I expect the Fed will have to create about $2.5, $2.3 trillion to buy Treasury and agency bonds and put the money in the economy. And how they're going to do that, I don't know yet. That the legislature in Washington won't and can't do. You know, the $850 billion in Stimulus 1 and 2. So we're looking at 50% down the road about 3 years. And they can't do it any other way.
Bob, I agree with that assessment. You mentioned Germany. I read today Germany and France are obviously leading the efforts to bail out Greece and other European countries. And they are claiming they want a tax on financial institutions to help bail out these other countries. What are your thoughts? What's the inside story there, Bob?
Well, let's just take it like I don't know anything. And we all know that if you tax the banks, they're going to tax the people who use the banks. They're not going to pay it. And what you should do is tax the bank's earnings. That's better, because they were the ones that caused the problem in the first place.
Correct. By
creating money and credit. Historically, banks in the last 400 to 500 years, the rule of thumb has been for every dollar in deposit, you lend out 9. They've been lending out up to 70 times.
Wow.
Their underlying base. Right now, it's probably 30 to 40. So they haven't come all the way down yet. And they're carrying 2 sets of books. And the bad set of books has got all the garbage that they got involved in, and which will eventually pay for as taxpayers in most every nation. And so you have this whole syndrome of going forward by creating debt to pay debt, and it doesn't work.
Bob, what is I read a report yesterday about this financial bald-headed shill on one of the news stations was talking about how these Federal Reserve banks, or these various banks around the country that are made up of the Federal Reserve System, keep money in the Federal Reserve Bank, and they are paid a very significant fee or interest rate, a rate of return on the deposits that they keep in the Federal Reserve banking system. And therefore, he thought that was one of the factors in the downturn in the economy. The banks supposedly are holding on to money, and he thought that was the major issue with the banking institution right now, is they're parking that money there, they're making money there, they're not putting it into the economy. What's your assessment of that thought?
Who said that?
One of the bald-headed shills on MSNBC is what I heard. I can't remember which one it was.
And he's partially right. Lending to small and medium-sized businesses over the last 3 years has dropped by 35%. And, they just don't want to make loans. And they're afraid of what they see coming, what they created. And so, what is the solution? Well, the Federal Reserve has said, members, this is what we're going to do. We're going to lend you money at 0%, or a quarter of 1%, or a half of 1%, and you send that money back to us, and we'll pay you 2.5%.
Okay.
I know that sounds crazy, but that's what they're doing. And that money should be lent out, but it's not. They want the banks to be able to meet a run on the banks. That's why they're doing that.
Bob, do you
and
think...
at the same time, listen to this, that 2.5% less they have, the 2% profit is the money that would have been sent by the Fed annually to the Treasury Department in the form of profits. And those profits go into the Federal General Fund, which help pay our debts. So what the Fed is doing is it's paying its member banks so they don't go under, and the public is paying for it.
Bob, is a run on the bank on its way to us?
I don't know. I know that the big banks are in serious trouble here and in Europe, in England, and many of them are bankrupt, believe me. And as far as the small banks, medium-sized banks, it varies pretty widely. Some of them are in great shape. Others have made loans they shouldn't have made, or they bought these bonds, which had mortgages in them, which are now called toxic waste, and they're stuck with them. They bought them for par, which is, we'll say, $1,000 a bond, and now they might be worth $150, $200, $300, $2,000, that sort of thing. So they get big losses, and a lot of them, $1.3 trillion worth of those kinds of mortgages, were purchased by the Federal Reserve, mostly from the big banks, and they won't tell us what they paid, nor will they tell us what they're worth. It's a state secret.
Well, of course, maybe you can reveal the state secret to our listeners here at USA Prepares when we return after this the last break of the show. This is Mark Wright. I'm here with Vincent Finelli on USAPrepares.com with